All right, let's jump straight in. Welcome to today's explainer. If you're a developer, you already know how incredibly easy it is to just fall back on the same old UI templates, right? Well, today we are tearing into a project dossier that makes that literally impossible. We're looking at a wildly ambitious developer brief. The goal here is to build a completely unique NotebookLM-inspired web application from scratch. And when I say from scratch, I mean it. We are talking about a true masterclass in combining rigid, old-school technical constraints with absolute unbounded creative freedom. So whether you build apps for a living, obsess over UI and UX, or you're just fascinated by how modern AI tools actually come together, this brief is going to completely change how you approach app architecture.
So here is our game plan. We'll quickly cover the NotebookLM inspiration, the rule of infinite variety, those strict technical constraints, mapping out the architecture, and finally, nailing that modern AI experience.
Okay, kicking things off with Section 1, the NotebookLM inspiration.
Now, the core mandate of this whole project is a really delicate balancing act. You are tasked with building a web app inspired by the concept of Google's NotebookLM. Now, if you know NotebookLM, you know the vibe. You upload sources, and the AI acts as your personalized research assistant to synthesize and query all that data. But here is the absolute golden rule of this brief. You have to be completely original. Copying Google's exact interface? Completely off the table. You have to capture the pure essence of an AI-powered notebook, but invent an entirely new way to actually interact with it. Moving right along to Section 2, the rule of infinite variety. This is where things get crazy. The brief lays down this absolute, non-negotiable law. Never repeat any previous design, layout, color scheme, UI, or code structure. Seriously, think about that for a second. Every single time this prompt is run, it has to spit out a completely fresh visual identity. We are talking a new homepage layout, new navigation, different buttons, fresh typography, new icons, the whole shebang. It has to look like a completely different, highly paid UI designer walked in and tackled the app from scratch every single time.
And that is a huge departure from standard software dev, isn't it? Standard AI apps are frankly predictable. We all use the same component libraries, which gives us those cookie-cutter layouts. You know exactly what I mean. The classic left-hand sidebar with a chat window smack in the middle. But this project outlaws all of that. It demands a premium, fresh interface that's totally unique on every single generation. No two versions will ever look alike.
Which brings us to Section 3, strict technical constraints.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, infinite creative freedom, so I can use whatever modern frameworks I want, right? Absolutely not. This brief forces you into a strictly classic tech stack. No React, no Vue, no Tailwind or Bootstrap. You have to build this using the absolute foundational pillars of the web. PHP for your server-side logic, plus pure HTML, CSS, and vanilla JavaScript. It forces you to build the architecture from the absolute ground up without relying on any prepackaged shortcuts.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how wild these constraints actually are. You have to keep all of your CSS and JavaScript inside each PHP file. Let me repeat that. No external style sheets, no external JS files. In modern dev, separating your files is like rule number 1 for keeping things clean. But this brief flips that entirely on its head. By forcing everything into the PHP file, it creates these highly self-contained, completely independent page structures. It's a massive constraint that totally changes how you organize your code.
Let's dive into Section 4, mapping the application architecture.
8. That is the magic number. The brief demands exactly 8 distinct, realistic pages. So we aren't just making a quick landing page or a single chat box here. You have to build a fully fleshed out application ecosystem entirely from scratch with a totally new UI every time.
So what exactly are we building? We need a home page, a dashboard to view the workspace, the notebook itself for the deep research, and a dedicated AI chat. Then, crucially, a sources page to actually manage uploaded documents, which is obviously the heart of the NotebookLM concept. Add in settings, a profile, and secure authentication, and you've got your 8 pages. Designing and coding that entire ecosystem to flow logically, while keeping it to single PHP files and making it visually unique every single time, that is an absolutely massive undertaking.
And finally, Section 5, the modern AI experience.
Now, just because you're restricted to raw HTML, CSS, and JS inside a PHP file doesn't mean the app can feel clunky. Not at all. The brief explicitly requires smooth animations, polished loading effects, and snappy hover states. It has to feel premium. These fluid interactions are what take a static web page and turn it into a modern software experience that feels alive.
And of course, that polished experience has to work flawlessly everywhere. A fully responsive, mobile-first design is mandated. The entirely unique UI you just generated for those 8 pages, it has to look perfect on a smartphone before it even scales up to a desktop. Because, let's be real, an AI app is pretty much useless today if you can't access it on the go.
At the end of the day, all of this unique UI has to actually wrap around realistic AI capabilities. You can't just draw a text box and call it AI chat. It needs typing indicators, message streaming, real-time source citations popping up, the works. The user has to feel like they are genuinely interacting with a highly intelligent backend.
And under the hood, zero room for spaghetti code. Even with the insane demand for infinite visual variety and jamming everything into PHP files, the code has to be clean, production quality, and properly commented. It has to remain professional and readable so that this wild creative experiment is still, structurally, a really solid piece of software.
So, there you have it. We've completely unpacked the anatomy of this dossier. You've got rigid mandates for pure PHP files, exactly 8 realistic pages, and a top-tier mobile-first AI experience. But layered over all of that is the ultimate creative challenge: absolute infinite visual originality inspired by NotebookLM. It's a crazy paradox of extreme limitation and total freedom, isn't it? It really forces you to ask, when you strip away all the UI libraries and the templates we lean on every single day, and you are forced to invent something totally fresh from the ground up, what will your unique AI app look like? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this sparks some serious creativity for your next build. Catch you next time.